Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. I'm speaking to you today from what has become a monsoon in England, in the UK. It's absolutely throwing it down outside. It's freezing cold, and I'm really glad to be here in the warm greenhouse. So today we're going to have a chat about, it's a bit of a mouthful, Pleurothallis Restrepioides. Pleurothallis Restrepioides, at least that's the way I pronounce it. So let's get stuck in. So this is a Pleurothallis Restrepioides. It was discovered first by Robert Brown in 1813. I say discovered, it was kind of brought to the attention of the European scientists. And the Pleurothallis as a species is a huge species. There are thousands and thousands of various types of Pleurothallis. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but the focus of this video really is very simple, and I actually hesitate to say this because I am a big plants person. I love plants, I love all sorts of nature, but I particularly focus on plants, and I actually, confession, don't like this plant. I really don't like it, and it may be my particular experience with it or my own plant that I've got here, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. So first of all, a little bit of history about it. I bought this a couple of years ago. It was a friend bought it for me from an auction at the local Orchid Society, and it was in a state when it came. I mean, it's still in pretty bad state, but it was in a state when it came. There was certainly no flowers on it, and it had absolutely, dozens of these keikis, and it didn't flower for the first 12 months anyway. And at the moment we've got 2 blooms on it. I'll just turn it around there so you can see. I mean, this is one of the reasons I'm not that thrilled with it, because the blooms themselves are really not spectacular. Well, I don't think they are anyway. I remember, if anybody remembers Oliver from Oliver's greenhouse, he did a great video on this. I've just lost a bloom. He did a great video on Pleurothallis Restrepioides, and he was a big fan. He was really fascinated by the intricacy of these orchid blooms at the end. He described them as like a chain of blooms, which they are, a chain of blooms, but there's just something about them that does absolutely nothing for me. I just don't find them in the least bit interesting. Not sure why. I should do really, and I feel quite guilty about it, but anyway. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button, ding the notification bell, and you won't miss any updates. When it came, it was in a state, so a lot of the leaves were looking, I mean, I've got this nice new leaf here, but a lot of the leaves were looking very sorry for themselves. Lots of black marks underneath, you can see there. It just basically doesn't look happy. This growth has died off. Some of these keikis, I got that fed up with them. I started cutting them off in the end because they were just taking over the plant. I know it's going to bloom again there. So I have to confess, I really don't look after it the way I should. I don't water it when I should. I forget about it. I've probably perhaps never even shown it to my subscribers. I think I might have done it once if I remembered. But yeah, so I'll try and show it at its best. I think that's about the best angle we're going to get there. 1813, we said it was first brought to people's attention. It's a huge group of plants. There are lots and lots of species, thousands I believe. They grow in the montane forests from Ecuador, Colombia, Peru. Montane basically means like a mountainous ecosystem. So that can mean anything from like alpine mountains where it can get quite cold, but in the tropical areas, like we've mentioned Colombia, Ecuador and Peru, it doesn't tend to get anywhere near as cold as it does up in the Alps, so in the European Alps. So this plant doesn't really like to go much below 10 degrees, but it does like lots of humidity, diffuse light. It is amongst the trees. It's epiphytic. It grows up in the trees. Like I say, there are so many of them that it has been known to find up to 7 different species on a single branch, which is that's quite a claim, really, to see so many different species on one single branch. Fertilizer doesn't like it, like many orchids, doesn't like a lot of fertilizer. It's much easier to overfeed it than it is to underfeed it. So I do feed it, but I don't I don't measure it all out. It just gets what it gets in the rain barrel, really. The recommendation is 1/4 to half strength every other week. It will very easily build up salt in its pot, and then obviously you're going to be overfeeding it. The media, I think I've got it in the wrong media, to be honest. I'll just pick you up a second. So the media I've got it in is I've got it in a very free draining mix. So there we've got, you can see there's limestone and there's bark. The reason I did that is because the last time I unpotted it, which was, I think it was October last year, it says on my label there, it had lost a lot of its roots. Now I thought that was possibly because I was keeping it too moist, but I think the opposite is probably true. Really, it prefers to be in like a usual orchid mix. So yes, bark, but it also needs perhaps a bit of sphagnum, something that's going to maintain a little bit of moisture. Quite an open mix, but also with a little bit of water retention as well to keep it a little bit moist around the roots. You can mount them, which again gives you an indication of the kind of potting media that you should be using. So I'd say a mix of perhaps perlite, perhaps a little bit of fine bark, but mostly quite thick, coarse bark with a mixture of sphagnum moss as well. That's your usual kind of orchid mix, and that's what I might try it, depending on the outcome of this video anyway. I might try it, or I might just chuck it out because even if it does begin to look better, I know Oliver's looked a lot better specimen than mine, I'm still not that thrilled with it. The flowers, they're not really doing it for me. I don't know what it is. And on a note on that, in one of the other videos we did look at the fact that all orchids have these 3 petals, 3 sepals, but for the life of me I can't find the 3 sepals. I can find 2 sepals and the 3 petals with the lip, but I cannot find the 3 sepals. I'm sure it's in there somewhere because that's what all orchids have, but it might just be that small that you can't see it. I think this was going to be another flower spike, but I don't know what happened to that. It looks like it's rotted off. It's definitely a keiki machine. The keikis just keep coming and coming, and even if you cut them off, they come back again. So I would probably take all this limestone out of that, because I don't think it's helping really. It's probably a bit too free drain in there. Good air circulation. I have got it in kind of in line with a fan, so it's definitely getting some good air circulation. My next job is I'm going to repot it, so it will get what it wants if I decide to do that. I might have a look at it now actually while I've got it out here, and see how the roots are going. I can see on the top, on the surface, there we go, it is creating some new roots here. You can just see that on the top there. They're not keikis at the top, so switch it around so you can see these things here. So whether it's got any roots further down, I might give it another chance. Might be charitable. But what do you think? Is it just that I'm not growing it to its best advantage and therefore it's not showing its best? If I managed to grow it better, would it give me a better display than this? Would it look nicer, or is it just not a very nice plant? Let's see what you think. So stick it in the comments. Tell me yes if you like it, no if you don't, and if you can bear to, if you can put a little bit more detail in there, that would be great. Okay, so I have unpotted it, and let me show you what it looks like. It doesn't look that much different to when I repotted it in October. So first off, these just came away in my hand. So these nice new growths, they were already like attached to the side there. They weren't actually attached to anything. They weren't keikis, they were just kind of growing up the side. They were just new plants that had just kind of sprouted up at the side. So that is a good plant. That can be potted up. I've not detached it from anything. So I might actually give it a go. It's got a nice new leaf, and give it a go like a fresh. There's no black marks on any of them. There's another one over here that we could give a try to. So I'll just put these two to one side. There was one where all the roots were dead on it, so that's no good. I'm going to throw that one. But the main plant itself, the one that's flowering at the moment, you can see what we've got here. It's like there are new roots coming along the top there and down the side. Lots of new growths here. But if you look underneath, it's just like a solid mass of dead stuff, and I think it's that that's preventing it from really reaching its full potential. At some point, and I really don't think I've done this, I think it arrived like this really. At some point these roots have died off, and all that stuff is preventing it from creating new growth that's going down into the media. So you've just got this stuff that's on the top, which isn't going into any media at all. I mean, fortunately here it's very humid anyway, so that's probably why they're surviving. But I think that underneath, that plug, if you like, there is preventing it from really getting down into any media and showing its best. So I've got the two new ones that I might give a try to. I might get my penknife and have a real dig into there and see if I can get rid of all that and see what we're left with. I mean, I'm not really bothered. You know, if we lose these flowers, then I don't really think we've lost a great deal. I mean, if you look at the state of the leaves underneath, you know, it just is, well, it's a rescue, isn't it? And it's been a rescue for the last couple of years, but I've not really dug into it to see what the problem was. So I think that might be my course of action. I'm going to dig right under there. I'm definitely going to pot those two up separately and see if they see if they come good on their own without being attached to this big thick mass of dead stuff, and we'll see what happens. So I'll have a go at that now, and I'll show you what it looks like when I've finished. Okay, so you can see now I've got all that dead stuff off, that big mass of dead stuff. You can see where all the new stuff's coming from, and what we need to try and do is get that into a pot of the right size, definitely not this great big thing, and see if we can get some media mixed, which is somewhat water retentive, so that some of these roots will be encouraged to go downwards, and it's going to need anchoring in as well. And coming off that, well, there's all the dead stuff that's come off it, great big mass of roots and leaves. And over here that just kind of came apart are these nice new ones, which, well, that one's got a bit of black on it. Well, that's the keiki that's got the black on it there, so I might take that bit off there. Keiki off a keiki. We'll get these separate in some tiny pots and see if we can get some good growth coming. I mean, you know, people take plants to auctions because they don't want them anymore, don't they? And you can see why. They obviously didn't want to do the work on this one, and I've avoided doing it for so long. But yeah, we've still got some blooms, but whether they're worth saving, I'll give it another chance. I'm sure when I saw Oliver's Pleurothallis Restrepioides, it did look better than that. Let's face it, it'd be difficult not to look better than this one. So I'm going to get it potted up, get a mixture, get it potted up, and then I'll show you the result. Okay, so I've mixed up here. We've got some bark, some vermiculite, and some long fibred sphagnum moss. I've gone a little bit heavier on the sphagnum moss and the vermiculite to try and retain a bit more of the moisture, because from my experience with the last one, since I did it in October, and you can see the roots on this thing are all on the outside, there's nothing coming from underneath, so that kind of indicates to me that it just wasn't getting enough of the moisture around there. So I'm going to try and change things up a little bit and see what happens, and that's the way to do it, really, isn't it? It's all right books telling you to do, you know, stick it in this particular media or that particular media, but these things are generalizations, and even though it's a cool to intermediate grower, you know, if you live in somewhere like Cyprus, your cool is going to be completely different to the cool of UK, the United Kingdom. You know, what I consider cool is probably going to be a lot cooler than what someone like Miss Orchid Girl, Danny there in Cyprus, would consider to be cool. So, you know, you've got do a little bit of experimentation. So I'm going to try this anyway, see what this is like, and if this doesn't work, then we'll try something else. So I'm going to get it in that. I'm going to pot up these keikis, or these baby ones, into some small pots as well. I might stick them all in the same pot actually, because I don't want, you know, 3 separate ones because they're so small. It's just more work, isn't it? And let's see what happens. So I'll show you when I've done what it looks like. Okay, so this is what we're left with. So the large one that we started with, I've got that in probably 11 centimetre pot. Now I didn't have any more of these pots. I was going to put the 3 small ones in a pot like that. I only had like a net pot like this, but it'd be interesting to see whether, you know, especially with all these aerial roots, there's one poking out already there, whether they will begin to come out through the side. You can imagine them, can't you? They grow in montane forest, they're epiphytic, they grow up in trees, so you can imagine them sticking out, you know, roots sticking in the air, roots out there to collect moisture from the clouds that roll over, and the dew, the mist, and sticking out through the sides, and, you know, in all different directions. They're not going to be restricted like this. So it'll be interesting to see whether these ones do any better. You would expect them to, because they're more vigorous, because they're younger, but well, we'll see. It certainly looks better than it did when it was in that thing there, because it was basically just sitting on top, and the rest of it no doubt was full of water, or certainly wet, and not doing it any good whatsoever. So let's see. I don't think I've killed it. I have had people say to me, oh yeah, Pleurothallis Restrepioides, I'll get used to that yet. They're like weeds. Well, we'll see. We'll see whether this one grows like weeds. It's like anything. Get the conditions right and it'll thrive. Don't get the conditions right and it won't. It'll be a hard to grow plant. So I'm going to take them back to the cool to intermediate side. I'm going to give them a water. I'm going to stick some labels on them, and we'll give them another chance. They're in last chance saloon. If they don't really begin to thrive for me and show me a better showing than this, then it's going in the bin. It's going on the compost heap. So let me know what you think anyway, what your experiences are with this plant, whether you think it's worth bothering with, whether you think, you know, you might have a version of it that it looks much nicer than this, and you wouldn't, you know, you couldn't possibly be without it, and it's just that I've not been growing it correctly, which I know I haven't. You know, I'm totally open to admit that the optimum conditions for it were not what it had. Some of them were, you know, the temperatures was okay, the frequency of watering, the fertilization, the media was the only thing really that was wrong with it. But hopefully we've remedied that now, and give it a water and we'll give it another chance. So let me know what you think. Put your comments in down below as usual, and give us a thumbs up if you like it, and if you didn't, well, give us a thumbs down. I don't really mind one way or another. So I will see you anyway on the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.